Okay, so I don't know what YouTube is up to, but they're I don't know. All right. So hi guys, how are you all doing? I don't want to be upset. This is something I've planned for a couple of days now, and I'm glad to see you guys. Listen, I'm enjoying doing lives. I did one live last week. I don't know for whatever reason, but that live is not performing as well as the previous one. And I don't know if it's because I used an external webcam. So I'm going to try to avoid all of that. I'm wearing sunglasses because I have lights everywhere. My eyes are beginning to pepper me. So how are you guys doing? So we continue today. Now, of course, if we go all over the internet, we've had so many stories going on about P.Diddy. Some of them are downright ridiculous, in my opinion. But today, I want us to start first with the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones came out with another article, and I'm quite interested in that. And they kind of put, the 10 takeaways from, that what they discovered or what they found out about P.Diddy. And again, it seemed very plausible to me because I read the article. That article was damn long, and I read it, and I was like, there is, in my brain, I was like, okay, so that majority of the theories that many of us had about this dude is actually true, and it's something to. I mean, again, let me enunciate those theories first. That he has to be questioned about the death of Tupac and Biggie. That Kim Porter's death has to be investigated again. And then he had a concert at some point where some students died. He has to, he has to, there has to be a reopening of the investigation on all of those things, because there is no smoke without fire. And when we know that there is no smoke without fire, there is usually some hidden truths in there. Okay, so I made a couple of notes. First of all, going back. So in that Rolling Stone, it says P.Diddy was jealous of Tupac's friendship with Biggie. And I'm not surprised. Neither am I going to say, well, that's weird. No, because for an egocentric, for someone who thinks about me, it has to be me. And to actually be able to get what he wants, he doesn't really mind, he doesn't really mind. It's okay for him to be able to, actually show his jealousy, because again, people like that, they don't know when they are showing their envy and jealousy. Remember, if we all go back to the 90s, remember that Tupac was the person everyone was listening to. Young boys were listening to Tupac. Everywhere we went to, it was Tupac. And his sound and everything about him was unique. Again, Tupac was a poet. And so, then Biggie comes along. Now, again, Biggie and Tupac are friends, okay, or were friends. And both of them had very great rap, they had very amazing hip hop prowess, so to speak. And let's imagine that these two people ever came together or put these forces together. I'm not sure P.Diddy his career would have seen the light of day, because Tupac was a strong force to reckon with. He was that truthful. He was brash. He said how he felt. He spoke how he felt. He didn't care. He didn't give a damn. Okay? And so, of course, understanding as well that from what we hear or what we find out, that Pac didn't respect P.Diddy. So again, we can now trace to the fact that there was this money, power, respect syndrome that was going on with this man. But then that money, power, respect had to happen when the people who knew him well enough, all right, had to be removed from the equation, because then he can actually do what he wants to do. And those who really could, point to his insecurities and his, funny behavior could actually like say, could actually refute everything that he does. Something that irked me though in all of this is that it was quite irking. The Rolling Stones cover. I wish I had the picture here. I wish I had the picture here with me. If I can't, I don't know if I'll be able to find it. The Rolling Stones cover that when Biggie died, that Rolling Stones wanted to do a feature on Biggie, and he downright refused. I tell you people, if I am anybody inside that federal police kinikon, FBI, I will definitely be making a deeper investigation into that, because it says volumes. Rolling Stone, I don't know if Rolling Stone is just telling us this today because in the wake of all of this, I'm coming with the gist I'm coming with because it's coming from another place. I discovered something. But, I'm wondering, is it because of this case that they decided to let us know that Biggie, P.Diddy, had actually, was against Biggie having a Rolling Stones cover? And what was said in his words, he said, no, that it is him. Biggie is dead. YouTube, I beg you, don't censor me. But that was what he said. He said, Biggie is not alive, that he's the one who should be doing that. And that particular thing he said, it's worrisome. It's very worrisome because, again, you now begin to ask yourself, but that shouldn't be where your sentiments or how you express your sentiments. If I had a very good friend who had such a demise and someone says to me that they want to immortalize them in some form, I would be very glad and happy because I would first of all, I will get a copy of that or whatever and put it in my somewhere that keeps me having those good memories of you. Because I don't know if you guys are aware, I'm sure many people are, if you've lost someone, usually you don't, one of the last images you want of that person, this has happened to me and that's why I'm saying it. One of the last images you want to have, you would make sure you want to have about that person is of that person in a good place, in a good way, smiling, happy, something amazing. You don't want to have the memory of that person lying in state or in that horrible way. And so that if you have to always remember that person, it has happened to me. Every time I remember my friend, because I went for the wake, I went for a lying in state, and it was an open casket. And each time I have to remember her, I can't remember her, that smiley, bubbly person that she was. I always remember her, how I saw her lying in state. And it played a lot with my psyche. And I always told myself, I don't want to have to remember anybody. So again, why would you be content? Because in my brain, remember, P.Diddy was in the car where Biggie was shot. So why would that image, you're content with it? But then there is this thing that can immortalize this person in a better way, other than what this image is, and puts him and immortalizes him, and you, his friend, for whatever reason, Rolling Stone decided they wanted to seek permission from P.Diddy, says no. Again, if I were Homeland Security, if I were the FBI, the CIA, that alone is enough for me to question a lot of things that has happened all these years. That said, we move on. Now, in the Rolling Stones article, it also talks about the fact that he had, I don't call that abandonment issues. I'm sorry. I hate to give names to, I don't know, when an abuser or a manipulator does something and they are aware that they're doing it, I hate to give them a cop out because they were not drunk, they were not under any influence, nothing. I hate to give them a cop out. It's just like when the CNN video came out and they said he seemed drunk. He wasn't. There was nothing wrong with him, because if there was something wrong with him, he would not remember to take his towel with him. He took his towel, he tied his towel with him, and he went after someone, a girl, who was running away from him. So I don't like to give them a cop out. And so for me, I don't want to use the word abandonment and linking it to his father. I don't really care, because again, the story of two sons, you choose. And he chose where he wanted to lean. And so that if you tell me that because for every woman who left him, he had abandonment issues, it takes me back to his interview on the Breakfast Club, where he said he's 25, that his love, that on a scale of 100%, with him, you get 75% of greatness and then 25% of, whatever it is that he's dishing out. If you do the math, actually, that 25% is the whole 100% of madness of an insecure abuser. That is a whole 100% of somebody who is violent and has a history of violence. That is a whole 100% of someone who feels that he's powerful and he must be able to carry out that power over you. For him, anybody around him doesn't matter. You're a slave. You serve me. And so anything I say goes. If you check the barometer of that 25% he talked about, you will find out that it is nothing compared to whatever 75% he says he's giving you. What is the 75% he's giving you? Cars, clothes, money. That is all crap. That is all crap. That's all BS, in my opinion, because if I have to take 75%, if I have to stay because of 75%, and all the 75% I have is just clothes, shoes, trips, and all, it's against 25% for my life, my dignity, my self-worth, my personality, my ability to be able to speak my mind. Again, I will not. And let me tell you something. When I was to get married, before I got married to my husband, I recall when I was in my period of alone, I recall one of the things I told myself at that period. I said, I will never, ever want to be in any marriage or relationship that will not allow my voice to be heard. That whoever I am getting married to must understand that I am opinionated and is willing to listen to my opinions and is willing to understand this part of me that says, I'm not a stooge. The fact that I am going to be your wife or I am your wife doesn't make me a stooge. It just makes you understand that I have a voice as well and that my voice must and should be heard. And so if somebody is with you and is telling you, well, take 75% of me, the 25% is this my crazy? No, don't. It's a trap, because there are men like that. There are men like that who will tell you all of that bullshit so that they can have that as an excuse to do the things they do to you. Because when they are done, then they take you on trips. When they are done, they give you money. They throw the money at you. Because again, in their brain, that is what you're here for. If people are not understanding the underlying message there, it means that's what you're here for. I can do anything to you. That's my 25%. You are here because of the 75%. And that is why a lot of people, unfortunately, Black men, Black artists, Black celebrities actually made that as an argument that that Cassie stayed because of the money. Sometimes I felt like going through the screen to give some people some, but I now remembered, okay, no, we can't be at close proximity. But that has to speak to the level of stupidity and ignorance that exists. Because I recall on one, I think it was Joe Biden who said on his podcast and said, no, it wasn't Joe Biden, it was the girl, can't remember her name. And she said that, and I think some of the other guys there said, many of these people, for them to speak this way means they have aunts, moms, sisters who are in the same situation. And for every time such things happen to them, they go back. So in their brains, they don't even know their position as the men in the family. Because if as a man in the family, your sister, your daughter is going through that, father, brother, uncle, you will go and you are going to make sure that somebody is unalived that day. So for any one of them, so-called hip-hop artist or R&B or whatever, to open their mouth and say and decide that Cassie stayed there or Kim Porter stayed there because of that 75% they were getting, I'm sorry. These are people that, first of all, these are the red flags. You can't even be in close proximity. Don't go there. And so telling me about him having abandonment issues, and then because you have abandonment issues, you lash out. If you are afraid of being alone, then you should actually go to seek help, right? And find out why you are afraid of being alone. Your pops, passed away, years ago. And all this while you were growing up, all this while you were doing what you're doing, you did not think to yourself, with all the money you had, you did not think to yourself, okay, why do I feel this way? You have the money. You could have found the best therapist in the world and done the work that you needed to do before deciding that you wanted to get into another person's life. Because let me tell you something. When an abuser comes into the life of someone who's okay and normal, you see, people may not know. They do more harm to that person emotionally, mentally, and psychologically. So much so, like that the healing is never ending. The healing continues. You don't end. It doesn't stop. Because while you are where you are, you get flashbacks. While you are where you are, anything could actually come close to you, and it puts you on a path of deja vu. Meanwhile, that's not the kind of deja vu you want. The kind of deja vu you want a deja vu of smiles, of lessons, of things that happened positively, or maybe even negatively, but that you were able, it wasn't harmful to your psyche or your emotions. And so any human being telling me or speaking about abandonment issues, I'm sorry, it's a cop-out. I'm not going to accept that. And I think maybe sometimes, we are woke now. Everybody's claiming woke and wokedness. But I think at this point, we need to be able to separate the use of these words. We also know that, yes, the law usually would make room for using psychological problems as a cop-out. We know that. But it is also imperative that we're able to prove that no. Because again, if you're one of the people that followed the Johnny Depp case, I did. And it was quite amazing to see how that case played out. Okay? With everyone trying to claim psychological trauma at some point just to get a cop-out and have a lighter sentence or to have a favorable sentence. Okay? Now, an abuser, again, when they talk about him having abandonment, she says that he now, that while Cassie ran away from him or she would hide, there are videos on the internet about that, he would go and find her. And then even the record execs will threaten her. Okay, will threaten her. Then you tell me that it's abandonment issues. Those record execs, they should find them. All of them should be brought out. We should know their names, and they should also be charged. Because again, why would you? Because if you were your sister, if you were your daughter, why would you? What form of abandonment is that? What level of abandonment is that someone else's child is no longer a person, but a slave? You put us as a sex slave to satisfy your warped and monstrous desires. No one deserves that. No one is an animal. Nobody. Because what I look at is, this is someone who has no respect for anybody and is willing and ready to debase anybody because he's got money and he feels he's that powerful. So he doesn't really care. You should be ready to be debased. If I speak to you the way you don't like, you accept it that way. If I treat you the way you don't like, take it that way. My desires, you have to accept them whether you like it or not. That is him. So telling me abandonment issues, I'm sorry. Now, again, let's talk about also Did anyone notice how I did notice it, and that's why I brought this out. He was the biggest, he was the largest torch bearer. And this thing happened twice. He was the largest torch bearer when Biggie passed away. And it happened when Kim Porter passed away. My mom used to say something all the time. She says, you cannot cry more than the bereaved. This happened when we were growing up, and something happened in our home, and she kept saying that. I was like, Mom, what do you mean by you cannot cry? Because words, most of the English I speak is my mother. And then I remember I asked her, I said, what does bereaved mean? She says, because most times ask my parents, what does the word mean? They'll tell you, go get your dictionary. That's how I learned how to use dictionary very early. And so I got the dictionary and I found out the meaning of bereaved. And I said, but what does it mean? She now says, listen, my mom now explains to me and says, when a family in mourning, maybe someone, passes away, that family has the husband or the wife or the kids. They have the aunts, the uncles, they have the direct family members, and then you have the extended family members. It's quite funny, it's usually very, very weird when the extended family members, and most times very extended family members, shed more tears than the people who this family was affected directly. She always said that. She said, anytime you see such display, know that there is something behind it. And again, reading through the Rolling Stones article, it pops up. He was the highest torchbearer, flag bearer for Biggie. And then Biggie passes away. Boom. He brings out the album. Now, before he brought out that album, the director actually did say, why don't we need some time, okay? We need time to grieve, and which is normal. I think in any sane country or family dynamic, it's a norm. Even in a company, it's normal that you lose one of your own. We do it for stars, not to talk of celebrities, not to talk of someone who was part of your record label, and he refused. But what he was more interested in was to release that album, that song. He released that album, and in the first week 700,000 copies were sold. Cry, good. And then he goes on this tour and he's doing all this, and everybody is he's garnering public sympathy. I actually did question at the time, what about, Biggie has a family, because this one, this amazing show, I hope the family is actually the one benefiting from this show. I hope. But you see, it was all in his pockets, that kind of thing. And then that passes away. Kim Porter dies. Now, remember that Kim Porter passed away just shortly after, I think it was shortly after Cassie put to bed, or Cassie left him. I can't remember, or Cassie got married. One of the two. And remember, in the last live, if you haven't watched that live, I'm going to attach it in the description so you can watch it. And if you now recall that in that period, he had been doing, in my last live, I spoke about it, I said, the taunting her in all the ways he was doing in the name of trying to get her back. And at that moment, everybody spoke up. He spoke about Kim as the love of his life, as this, that, and all whatnot. And he kept on carrying this torch for her. But then we now get to find out that story, that show wasn't the reality at all in any way, shape, or form. In fact, Kimora has been very vocal about P. Diddy's role in Kim Porter's life. She's been very vocal about a lot of things concerning Kim and her passing. And I'm just bringing out these two people because one made him a very rich man. The other gave him 4 or 5 kids, because I'll be sure's son is also Kim Porter's child. So she gave him 5, one lady, and then the other one made him a very rich man. And he actually did say that. He didn't back away from it. He actually said that he says, I'm looking for it. He said that Biggie, P.Diddy, sought the spotlight after Biggie's death with the album. All right. And then he classified Biggie's death as big business. Many people would say, oh, he is an astute businessman. You see, we all try to be ethical in business. At the same time, we all are sure, because if we go by the Financial Ethics Committee and the law stipulated, you want to make sure that you are not committing a crime, you are not breaking rules while, trying to make money. And where people have to disappear, either via passing away or whatever, then it's questionable. Where every one of these people have to disappear, because we also heard that Kim was going to write a book. But that book, I'm not even sure if the manuscript, we can find it anymore, right? Okay. Now, we also talk about his co-workers. Again, I've asked the question, why didn't these people why haven't they spoken up for a long time? But I'm beginning to understand that there was a level of power play where this man was concerned. We missed it. We never saw it. We missed it. We missed the power play. We missed all the things he did. All those videos we watched and all those reality shows that he was doing. We actually missed a maniac in full display. We all missed it. And so I'm not going to hold those people to task. But now they have come forward to, testify. That grand jury, I wish they'll make it public. I really want to watch it. I would not mind. I really want to watch it. And we now realize that they have been able to find their voices because thanks to Cassie. Cassie has made us know. Again, all the who's who in the industry are mouth ziplocked. Right. And then down to the main story for today. So, an expert in the Department of Homeland Security. This was amazing to my ears. So an expert in the Department of Homeland Security was interviewed. And we got to find out that from what she said, that the feds or the Homeland Security going to, Diddy's house was not just because of Cassie's, it wasn't just because of Cassie's, lawsuit. It was also the fact that he had been under investigation prior. And she makes us understand that the Rolling Stones article, because it says 6 months ago, so this was way before Cassie's suit. And so she spoke about something, and I hope I'll be able to get us to be able to listen to exactly what she said in this video.
Their control, support, and the resources. So any money is not being made by the individual who is now incarcerated. That money is then, can be. People were very mixed about it being released and people sharing it and everything, but it also seemed to prompt more people to come out of the woodwork and file more lawsuits. And also the public sentiment then turns to like, oh, this is a bad guy. This isn't just, he isn't a victim. There are a ton of victims that need the financial support and the resources. So any money is not being made by the individual who is now incarcerated. That money is then, can be used by the voluminous amount of victims for their long-term recovery, because it would go into, there is a victims compensation fund. And so the local police have the local district attorneys have victims witness people, and then the states have the victims compensate. There's a victims compensation commission in every state in the United States, right? At the federal level, there is a victims witness coordinator. So all of the United States Attorney's Office, they have one, or they share one, and they work with with the FBI, who does the investigations, and U.S. Attorney's Office, who does the prosecution. So they coordinate resources, services, and support for victims of crime, the victims of these cases. And having that money is then anything that they have, becomes consumable and executable for resources for individuals in these cases.
All right.
And
so basically, I'm going to put the link of this video. You can go and listen to her. And so she was talking about, which brings us to what I wanted to talk about. She was talking about, there were two things she said. So I'm going to go to the Victims Compensation Fund. And she said that many times when platforms remove the music of these people, that we actually, especially as the public, we do more harm than good to the victims. And this was it was news to me. I would never have guessed. And she said that it's important that those platforms remain, because the money that they make off of those records now is moved to the victims and is put into the victims' compensation fund or commission at the state, federal, and local level. And this is amazing. And so it brings me back again to when we talked about, if we go back to R. Kelly and all whatnot, and how most streaming companies have removed his songs. Again, so we realize that, at the end of the day, it's actually more harm than good when they remove these songs. And for me, this is golden information. And I'm going to implore all of you who are going to watch and listen to this live. And I'm going to implore to all of you and say that, I think it's something to consider. And I think it's quite interesting, because this is my first time hearing that it exists, And so, rather than the money come out from these pockets, because again, if there is no money, these victims are just left hanging, nothing, and they live with the trauma. But then remember that these victims have to go to therapy. Therapy has to be paid for. They have to go through this series of, checkups, medical, and what have you. It's very imperative and it's very important for them, that they are able, to have this compensation. So I think maybe we should, when we all get online and everyone is busy, haranguing streaming giants about not streaming the songs and all that, I think we should reconsider, allow the songs to play, because knowing that the money goes to the victims, right? And then to end this live, I'm going to go walk us through what she said about abusers keeping souvenirs. And she was speaking in relation to the videos that were found, rolls and rolls of videos, tapes were found in his house. Now, like she said previously, she said this investigation started a long time ago. And I think maybe Cassie's lawsuit kind of maybe made things, but they have, and she says that, one of the things that we have to consider is they do not want to say, when it comes to wealthy people, you don't want to go in there and go looking like a fool. You want to go in there and make sure that your T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. You want to ensure that everything is ringing true. So we also hear that victims are being called and re-questioned, called in for questioning and re-questioning, because they want to ensure that the faces that they see on the tape, their stories are matching. And she also said that anyone whose face is found on any of those tapes should be worried. Should be worried. I think that gives us a hint to what we are what we can, assume. Then she says that child or sex traffickers do keep souvenirs. And she says that the work with them is much more difficult. And I don't need to see one to know and understand what she means. There's a lot of work to be done. Because with children, it's a little bit more different. Teenagers, it's a little bit more different. They may not want to speak, but you know that this person is going through something. They may not want to do a lot of things, but you're aware that these people are going through something. And when she puts that in that context, that they keep souvenirs because for them it's a work of art. So, in conclusion, when someone, an abuser, a maniac such as P.Diddy, who has tapes, rolls and rolls of video documenting his depravity, that means he's quite aware of what he's doing. And I will be very, very, very clear. I don't want to be using those words like abandonment and who seems to be inebriated. I don't want to be using those words where he's concerned, because they're actually people who need them. They're actually people who those words qualify, not him. He's been very clear on what he's doing. There is no emotion in his eyes. He is a man who is cold. He's got no emotion in his eyes. I watched the video of Danity Kane, the group. That video was scary. And he was talking to Aubrey O'Day. And the way he stood up. And at that moment, I was like, is she a man? Why do you want to charge in that manner? And the way he spoke with her, the way he spoke to her like she was inconsequential. And the language he used on her, using words like promiscuous, and I'm like, what gave him the right? What gives him the right to speak to someone's child, someone's daughter, in such a derogatory manner? What gives you that right? And I keep on asking, my question is, do we say thanks to social media for all this wealth of information that we have, that doctors can reach out so easily to everyone online, and we can actually discuss, abuse and the signs and manipulation and the signs, and how did we miss this? Something made this okay. Something made this okay. And it definitely isn't okay. And on this note, guys, thank you all so much for being here. Once again, I apologize for running late. I scheduled, and I think apparently when you schedule, there's a different thing that happens. But thank you all so much for being here with me. Thank you all so much for listening in. Thank you all so much for watching my live videos, and I'll see you guys in the next live. It may not be about Diddy next time, but I'll see you guys. Hey, and watch out for the next episode of my podcast. Do not fail to like, do not fail to comment, share, and subscribe. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Bye.